So I looked at the comments from the last State of the Skits address. I looked at the feedback, and it was very supportive. I appreciate everyone who is like, take a break if you need a break, or take a day off when you need a day off, or you're only human. It was very supportive, and I appreciate that. For the people who were concerned that I was stopping the show at all, I'm not. I have no, like I said in the video, I have no interest in stopping. I enjoy doing the show every day. It's still very fun for me. Something that I feel like I need. Is something that it feels like home. It feels like an escape. It feels like, I don't know, I can't explain, an outlet. But here's the conclusion I came from all the feedback. I saw a lot of you say take the weekends off and make it like a 5-day soap opera. I saw a few people say just take a day off when you need a day off, whatever. Not taking weekends off. I feel like that's too much. But for maybe a year or two, I have tinkered with the idea that I want to take Sundays off. That day has always felt right with me, and I always told myself when I was in a better place, financially, whatever the case may be, then I would take that day off. And I think now's the time for that. I think this series could actually benefit from 6 days a week rather than 7. I feel like we do need a refresh day every week, especially for me. And I think, knowing me, I may not upload that day on Sunday, but there will be days where I still film. And allowing myself a day to film an extra day of content just in case, just as a backup, that always helps. And over time that'll build up, you know what I mean? Like if I work a month straight, that's 4 extra days worth of content, if that makes sense, if you're following. So yeah, I wanted to make that announcement that starting this Sunday, that's when we're going to start taking Sundays off. Still be 6 days a week, still aiming for 3 videos a day, and that's not changing. I also always wanted to take off Sundays because it's God's day, and I'm a firm believer in God, and I do have a lot of faith, and I've always kind of felt guilty working on Sunday when I don't have to. I've been blessed by God with the audience that I have, with the life that I have, and a day of rest is necessary, even though I may not necessarily be resting, but you know what I mean. So yeah, I do think that taking Sundays off, have that final episode of the week on Saturday, maybe it'll end on a cliffhanger or something, make you miss it a little bit, and then we'll be back Monday. I also think that occasionally there will be a Sunday episode, and maybe I will hate taking Sundays off, and I'll go back to posting on Sundays. I don't know, but yeah, that's that announcement. Newsletter. I hope everyone that's had the newsletter is on here and can see this video. That was a quality of life thing that I cut out. I just couldn't mentally upload that newsletter anymore. It was draining me. I know it's silly, but doing it once a week, there was a lot of work involved. Just first I had to get the schedule, then I had to write it all out perfectly on the email, and then put the links in. And I know some of you noticed, over time the newsletter just became the schedule, because my week is so busy that it's just hard to sit down and write a newsletter. I really didn't have time. The last couple Saturdays, me and my wife and my son, we were busy, and I remember I got home at 8 one Sunday 8 one Sunday night or something, and then I was like, I didn't do the newsletter. And so from 8 to 10 now I'm doing, and I was like, I don't need to do this. I don't need to do this. The videos are all on YouTube. They all have premiere dates. You guys know what time they air and stuff, and typically after the episodes now, if there's a gap in between a midnight episode and a noon episode, I kind of put it at the end, hey, the next episode is blah blah blah. You know what I mean? Plus it was $60 to run that newsletter every month. It kind of felt, I know it was convenient and it was nice for some people, but I still need to worry about how much work I'm putting on myself, especially with the addition of the reels that I've been making, 3 times a day. also. Alright, so let's not make this whole video about announcements and scheduling. Let's like actually have a little bit of fun here before I let you go. Some quick notes I made about the season. I'm enjoying the second half more than the previous half, and I said that in the State of the Skits address, that I felt like this next half, with the ends that were wrapped up and stuff, would be a little bit more fun. I learned from season 10, and I probably learned this way back when and forgot this, but family themes are more fun to make. They're more dramatic, they're more emotionally laced, they're just more enticing. Like talking about Mill's birthday, planning her birthday, I thought about that skit all day just because of the emotion in it. I'm personally someone that doesn't like their birthday, and to bring that to Mill, you know, it was easier to do that scene as her, because I feel that, you know, as opposed to the Brian Montgomery, Nanny Agatha business storylines were kind of boring for me to film. So even though these family themes repeat from time to time, they are still always the most emotionally enticing and more fun to film for me. I could do a million episodes where Mill is complaining about not seeing her grandkid on a holiday because it's so emotionally laced, that it's so much more fun and easy to do that rather than, oh, Brian Montgomery's trying to take control of the whole town. There's just no emotion there for me, if that makes sense. And I think even the audience, you guys, hardcore fans, would more enjoy those family, emotional, real storylines than those big fictional whatevers. I tried it, I didn't like it. Remember, I went into season 10 like, yo, this is gonna be exciting, we're trying new stuff. I hated the new stuff. I like it when we argue about relationships, and I think that's what got us here, you know. Remember, like Sal said in the death episode, the show started with Mill and family stuff and her talking about the holidays, and it was real, and it was you know, problems that people have. I made another note here going back to the scheduling thing, like even taking a day off. Remember, I said this maybe a year ago, I said I do the show every day because I remember being alone, and you know, when you're alone, you look forward to like TV shows, and around the holidays when you're alone and those shows aren't on, you feel like they abandon you. So that's why, and I still believe that that's why I do this show every day. It's for the people that are like maybe alone or going through something, that no matter what their day is like, no matter what chemo they're doing or what family member they lost or something, the constant is this show in a way. So it pains me to take a day off, although necessary. But again, I just wanted to reiterate why I film every day, you know, even though I don't have to, and it's still fun for me. Alright, the other note I made, emotional themes are the funnest. I think I just said that, but to reiterate, the episode we just saw at midnight hours ago with Joey talking about Junior in the store, you know, his spirit, even though my son is alive and healthy, doing that, talking about that as Joey was way more emotional and way more real, and took me to like a roller coaster of a place rather than the bigger storylines. As sad as it is to have those scenes with Joey or any of the characters, it's still like an emotional outlet. It's a crazy thing, if that makes sense. Those storylines, like after, although Melissa's argument with Joey about moving in was kind of long, I still walked away from it feeling like, wow, there was substance there. It was real, you know what I mean, rather than filler. That was a real conversation between them both, and something came out of Joey that wasn't even planned. He wasn't supposed to talk about her moving, like a reason for her not moving in as Junior. That just happened. It was real, authentic. That's why I do the show. I wrote here the episode where Brian had to pretend to be happy, which is the previous episode, and was more relatable and easy to film compared to bigger storylines. Yeah, so like I said, these family themes, you can only do so much with them. They're gonna repeat, right? But just Brian pretending to be happy for Tiffany was more relatable to me than acting in another type of storyline, because a lot of the times I have to pretend like I'm happy, and we all do, you know what I mean? We've been there, we know what it's like to all right, let me not be sad. Here I am, I'm happy. Playing that role in Brian for that episode was really fun, and that was another skit all day that I was thinking about. Well, I can't wait to do this. As opposed to Jonathan doing a sermon. I enjoyed it, but there wasn't any real feeling behind it. Brian acting that way was a real feeling behind it that I've had to express. We've all worked terrible jobs where we don't want to smile, but we have to, and that was Brian in that scene, and that's where I could pull that from, and it's real, and it wasn't hard to film. Remember the episode? There's another note. Remember the episode where Brian told Victor that he was boring? That came from a real place, because I saw a comment. It didn't bother me, the comment. I enjoyed it because I agreed with it. Someone said Brian's boring, and I 100% agree. He is the worst character for me to play a lot of the times. And I know why. Because Brian, again, is that guy at work who's putting on a front, who's trying to be perfect, who's trying to be nice. We've all worked a customer service job where, all we want to do is I don't know, browse tattoos and watch wrestling or something. And talk about me, but you all have something that you'd rather be doing. That's that's authentic. And I think Brian's character, he's trying to be the good guy. He's trying to be the cookie cutter CW Prince knight in shining armor. And when you try to be so good and you try to be without any flaws, God, is it boring. He is the most boring guy, because he just can't be bad. Even when he was trying to be happy right there, he can't do it. Whereas Melissa, sometimes I'm a bitch, you know what I mean? Sometimes I'm moody in attitude, and sometimes I'm entitled, like we all are, or we get irked by things. And I think Melissa is that part of your personality, but turned up to 1,000,000. It comes from a real place. Sometimes my wife's OBGYN, when she was pregnant, was a jerk, or he was aloof and didn't really care about concerns. I said this before, but when Melissa was nasty and crazy during her pregnancy, that was just who I wished I could be in those moments where her OBGYN pissed me off by just saying, drink more water. I could finally be a Karen and annoy the hell out of that doctor. Brian can't do that. Brian just has to say good morning to everyone and smile and say, how do you want your car fixed? It's very boring. But as crazy and toxic as Melissa is, we do all have that in us. Not to her extent. It's turned up to 1,000,000, like Stone Cold Steve Austin. The guy who plays him cannot act like that in real life. He can't, kick his boss's ass. But Melissa can be that crazy person, and that's why I think she's more popular, resonates more, and is more fun to play, because she is authentic. Same thing with Joey. I'm not as toxic as Joey. I can say this now to most of you who are intelligent. I'm just a good actor. I am. I can admit that now, because apparently people would believe that I was him at times. They just couldn't fathom that, his actions come from somewhere, or this really must be him in real life. Look, he kind of sounds like that. Yeah, me and Joey kind of talk the same. I feel like, look, I grew up in Flatbush, Brooklyn. I've always been a little trashy if that makes sense. I like Chef Boyardee, I like hot dogs, I like Mountain Dew. I am a trashy-ish kind of person. I can relate to Joey in that way, but he is me turned up to a million toxic level, if that makes sense. And I'm just a good actor. But it's easier for me to play Joey than it is Brian. I spent 1.5 years at the College of Staten Island in a writing program, studying language and reading, and back then I couldn't keep up with it. In my 20s, it was hard and I got kicked out of it. But then I went back to college and graduated in the writing program and wrote a thesis, and then I became a freelance writer, and that was my living for years. And I love to read, and I would consider myself educated, but every now and then I'm trashy. My vocabulary slips, or I like to talk in a more natural, slangish way rather than what I would get out of a book, if that makes sense. It just feels more real to me, and that's kind of Joey. But again, when he's toxic, it's not me, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? I'm maybe like educated, but I don't want to be pretentious with it. I just like to speak in my trashy way at times, and that's Joey. That's me. We're the same person, and we're not the same person. I've learned with this season why I like playing certain characters and stuff, and like Mill, where do I get Mill's toxicity from? Like, that's not me. I'm not a mother-in-law, I'm not a woman, but my grandmother, who raised me, who I love, who's everything to me, who's no longer with us, she did have some bad qualities, I would say, in terms of like guilt trips growing up. And if I were to stay, I lived with her with my sister, and we were there 24/7. And if we would go to my aunt's house to sleep over at my cousin's house, she would kind of guilt trip us because she was lonely. She had no friends. She had no husband. It was just her, and she had addictions and stuff. So I'm very familiar with what it feels like to be on the receiving end of a guilt trip. But I'm also able to like act and pick up on people. I'm a good imitator, and she was my role model, my hero. So I think I took a lot from her. But I can dispel that guilt. I can feel it in me, so I can give it out too. That's what Mill is exceptional at with holidays and stuff, and making people feel guilty. Remember when she said, like, if I was dead next week, you would forget me? My grandmother had said that to me a couple times. I would do anything to have her back, and I know she's flawed, but that's where these things come from. You know what I mean? And it's so, I say this again, it's just easier to play these family dynamics and family themes rather than the big grandiose fictional storylines like taking over an organization and stuff. Is boring to me. Those guilt trip toxic family themes and navigating, like letting someone move in or who gets the kids on this weekend, I could do 1 million of them and never get, because it comes from a genuine place of like trauma. I've said it, like I grew up around child services and stuff. It's a familiar feeling. Doing a church organization, medical organization, doesn't hit right. I tried it, but it doesn't hit right. I just found all that stuff interesting. I don't know if any of that was boring, but I like explaining it. I was amazed at like the people who are shocked by how like good I am at doing these characters, or like why I stick to certain themes, I guess. Alright, that's it. I'm gonna stop ranting now. Like I said, Sundays we're gonna take off. 6 days a week. We'll continue episodes. Still aiming for 3 days a week. And thank you all for being so supportive when I said I felt like a tad bit burned out. But again, don't ever worry about like me stopping, because I'm nowhere near that feeling. Oh, one more thing. I think this is really cool. For those of you who might be a little bummed about the newsletter, like hypothetically all the platforms go away and you gotta start over with my content. I finally trademarked Joey the Dad. So that's me forever until I, stop paying for the trademark. So if Patreon and YouTube all go away and you're like, damn, where do I watch the series? You just Google my name. I'll, for the foreseeable future, as long as I own the trademark, I will be Joey the Dad. That's cool, right? After all these years, I finally did that. So I just wanted to share that because I thought it was cool.